So we continue our discussion on the problem statement and of course the research flow which we were discussing earlier on. So the criteria for selection or the criteria of selection. So it is very, very important because how we select a problem, because sometimes we understand that whatever the problem we are selecting is an appropriate problem, but later we came to know that that problem is already exhausted and there are so many solutions to that problem, or in some cases you opt for a certain problem but it is not relevant with time nowadays. So whenever we are thinking about a problem, we have to be very clear. So we have to select the appropriate researchable problem out of the identified problems requires evaluation of those alternatives against certain criteria. So how you will opt for a certain problem? Let's suppose you being students now in a phase to look for a particular problem for, let's suppose, for your MPhil studies, and maybe there are some ideas right now going through in your mind, but the problem is that how you will know that which of the problem which you are thinking right now is the best one, and you select that. So it basically based on two important criterias. One is called the internal personal criteria, and the second one is called the external criteria or factors. The internal or a personal criteria is also important, which shows that whoever the researcher is, what is the interest of the researcher. So, being the student of information technology or being a student of computer systems or computer science or software engineering domains, um, uh, we must understand that there are lots of areas within that particular domain. Because if you talk about computer science, so even in computer science we have so many domains. Here we talk about algorithms. Here we talk about networks. Here we talk about databases. Here we talk about operating systems, so on and so forth. So we have so many areas which we cover uh, in that particular domain. So it is very important that what is your research interest, because your research interest leads you towards basically the problem solving, or obviously your input. That is very important. Let's suppose you opt for a particular problem where you do not have any interest, although the problem is good. You have identified a good problem, but problem is that you do not have any interest, or somebody has imposed that problem to you, which is actually in conflict with your own interest. So it is very important. So whenever you are looking for a research problem, you have to see that what are your research interests. I remember that when I was doing my, I was in the process of selecting my problem statement, or I was formulating my problem during my MPhil days. I still remember my supervisor asked me that let me know what are your areas of competence, or in which areas if you are more interested or you are more inclined. Then I asked my supervisor that my interest mainly is in the database domain, and I want to do some sort of research in that particular domain, although I don't have a clear idea what to do. And secondly, I feel that I am good in AI at that time, so I want to apply some sort of AI as well, and I want to integrate these two domains. I think about in that direction. My supervisor told me that that is good if you have that interest, and if you have that competence, then 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 explore uh, those areas, and I will help you to provide you the relevant materials to identify that what type of problems we have in that particular domain and think about it and come out next time. So it helped me a lot. And because it is my own area of interest, so I put my efforts a lot. And at the end of the day, I believe that whatever I did, it is, not enforced by someone. It is my own, and since then I am working in these domains. So external criteria or factors: researchability of the problem, importance and urgency. um, Importance and urgency. For example, right now the world is going through with the COVID-19 scenario since the last year. So since this is a new situation, so now lots of people are thinking about, in this new situation, how to come out with a good solution, because there is an importance, there is an urgency. Various funding agencies are giving, research funds to come out and to resolve these things. So there is an urgency and as well as importance. Similarly, researchability of the problem, where you feel that lot of research to be done. Then, of course, the novelty of the problem. That is one thing which we which we pay more concentration normally. A lot of supervisors, they ask their students, whenever you go for your MPhil or a PhD research, come out with novelty, come out with some new idea, some come out with the approach which is not being used in the research community. Do not reproduce things, because there is one problem among young researchers, that whenever they go for they identify a certain problem, or they're in the process of identifying the problem, they are using the same approaches which have already been used, and there is no such new concept attached to it. So come out with the novelty, come out with the idea which is different. So there are lots of things which we can do, and we can see different results. Do not afraid to be, let's suppose, to be failed. So always think about ideas. So if you do not think about ideas, you will not come out with anything. So then the feasibility as well. So sometimes the idea is good, but the problem is whether it is feasible or not, whether in the given circumstances it is possible for you to conduct that research. It may require a lot of funding, and let's suppose you do not have that funding with yourself. Then you cannot, it is not feasible. Sometimes it needs the inclusion of certain domain expertise, which domain expertise, let's say, is not available wherever you are doing this work. So it means it is not feasible. Sometimes you need research guidance, and that research guidance in that particular area is not available wherever you are and wherever you are working. So again, it means that it is not feasible. Okay. And of course, whatever the problem you will opt, the one of the external criteria or factor is also the usefulness and social relevance. That is also important, that whatever the idea you have, how you will justify its usefulness. What advantages overall a society may take from your idea. um, Whether that idea is only for a research, or it has nothing to do with the solution of the problem, and to safeguard the community, then there is a question mark. So always come out with various problems and see that how they become useful for the society overall. So these are the external factors. So there are internal factors which are also important: your own area of competence, your own knowledge in a certain domains, your own personal interest, maybe your experience sometimes in a certain area will also incline you towards this kind of research. uh, and obviously the important thing is that how much resources you have to do that research. Do you have ample time? Sometimes students enroll, we have observed in the past in the MPhil and PhD programs, but their interest is more in other things. Let's suppose they are more inclined toward teaching, and they are giving the full time to teaching, and therefore they give less time to their research. Sometimes you need some sort of finances or resources, and you do not have that resources. I'll just take so The other important aspect is regarding the formulation. So, of course, selection is one thing and the formulation is another thing. Let's suppose you have selected a problem, but how you formulate it, that is also important. So, whenever we identify or we select a certain problem, then we have to formulate it. So, formulation is what? Is the process, of refining the research ideas into research questions and objectives. So what the idea is, what? Let's suppose the idea is that we want to have a criminal network in Karachi, and for that particular thing, we want to know exactly who is connected with whom. So that is the main idea. Now, in that particular idea, whatever the idea I have right now, it is still not formulated. Okay, that what are the research objectives? So in that particular idea, what are your main research objectives? What you want to do? Then you can formalize it. Okay, how you formalize it? You might say, okay, we will identify the all important, for example, the characteristics which are related to a criminal. Number two, we define to define the nodes in that particular network. Okay, to identify the various kinds of relationships exist among those criminals. I'm talking about those criminals who are apprehended, those who are in jails, those who are, for those who have, we have an FIR. So we have that data with ourselves. So it is what this is called formalization. Now we are formulating it. Let's suppose you are dealing with the problem of designing a spatio-temporal database for, let's suppose, for urban planning. And let's suppose, now that is the problem. Now again, that is the idea. How you will transform it into the research objectives. There you have to formulate it. There you have to see, okay, this is my first research objective. Number two research objective. Let's suppose to identify the various regions in terms of urban planning in a given city. Okay, then you identify the residential areas, and then you might have the identification of various nodes in that particular network. So you identify various research or to want to analyze that how expansion is being done, how the interrelationship of various nodes in that particular network. So once you have that problem, you have to formulate it. So you come out with the research objectives first, and then you come out with the research questions. Now there is a bit debate among the research community. In some researches, I have observed that the research objectives are not defined clearly, but research questions are defined. In some researches, we do not have a hypothesis. Instead of hypothesis, we have research questions. Okay, so now it's up to you how you formulate your problem, either with a clear hypothesis, or in some cases, after defining those objectives and research questions, normally people come out with a problem statement, which is very clear and precise, that that is the problem statement. But again, if you come out with the problem statement either with the research objectives or the research questions, or you either come out with the hypothesis. Basically it means that you are formulating the process, formulating the statement. The formulation means translating and transforming the selected problem, oblique topic, oblique idea into a scientifically researchable question. So how you transform it into a scientifically researchable question, because at the end of the day you have to have the answer of that question in your research. If you do not have the answer of that question in the research, then it means you have not achieved your task. So you have to come out with some sort of questions which are clearly defined. Let's suppose you want to have a study where you want to see that how the teaching community responded to this to these online teaching tools in the COVID scenario. Now I have given you some sort of a problem, but still that problem is a bit vague. It's just an idea, it is just a topic. There is no certain details into it. But if I am doing research on this topic, I have to come out with researchable questions. Scientifically researchable questions means those questions from where you can have that evidence, where you can easily say, okay, that is the result of that statement. So let's suppose I want to know that how many science teachers are more inclined towards online teaching tool such as Zoom. So here what I did, I have transformed this into a research questions. How the teachers of those courses where we have a practical part, they feel that they have delivered good during online execution. So again, what I did, I transformed it into a question. So after my research, I will be able to know exactly that whether I can respond to that question or not. Okay, so that is very important for us, that whenever we have that idea, we must transform this into research questions. It is concerned with specifying exactly what the research problem is. So that is the way by which your problem can be specified. If your thesis is being evaluated by somebody, obviously whenever you complete your thesis have to be evaluated first internally and then externally. So there we always go through with that part, how you have selected the problem, how you have finalized the problem, how you state the problem, what are your hypotheses, what are your research objectives, what are your research questions, and after going through with your last chapters of findings and results, there we compare, okay, that was your research objective, okay, that is you have achieved. So what is the relevance between these two? Okay, you have stated 5 questions, research questions in the beginning. Whether you have the response of those 5 questions in your conclusion, if it is not, it means the research is not done accordingly. So then the reviewer might go for change or might suggest you that how you conclude those statements, because you do not have the answers of those questions in your conclusion. Sometimes we have observed that the researchers deviate from the problem. They started with the other problem, they state something else, and they prove something else. If you do this thing, obviously that in the review process you might have difficulty. Therefore it is important that every time you have to be in consultation with your research supervisor. The task of the research supervisor is to guide you all the time, to put you on a clear path. If research supervisor is unaware of what you are doing, then it is quite possible that you might change your path and you will go into another path, and that will waste your resources, financial resources as well, and your time as well. So problem statement is a clear, precise, and succinct statement of the question or issue that is to be investigated with the goal of finding an answer or a solution. I think that is very clear. There is no ambiguity or vagueness which should exist in a problem statement. Otherwise, it is not acceptable. So there are two ways of stating a problem. Either you can pose the questions, or you can have a declarative statement and then you prove whether your declarative statement is true or not. So you might have a declarative statement. So let's suppose I want to do a research on the climate data and I want to use computing methods to find out the change in the climate. And let's suppose I am using the spatial statistics for that purpose, and I have the images of last 30 years of the glaciers which are there on the Indus Valley, let's suppose in the northern region of Pakistan. And what is the declarative statement? The declarative statement is, let's suppose that the one of the major cause of the reduction in the glaciers is the rising temperature. Now, what is this thing? It's a clear declarative statement that, in my opinion, temperature is one variable which is the cause of the declining in the glaciers. So now I want to prove this fact because this is a clear statement which I have given. Now, with the help of those images, I want to these spatial images, and then I compare those images, and then I might prove myself that these are the changes which have been observed in the last 30 years and which clearly shows that there is a rise in temperature, and with the rise in temperature we have an effect on glaciers. Okay, so that is what? That is a declarative statement. And instead of that, we can also put a question, research question, that what is the relationship of, let's suppose, the environmental factors with the declining in the size of the glaciers. So it is what? It is a question. Now I want to answer that question with the help of those analysis, the results which might have. So statement of the problem in general way, understanding the nature of the problem, and surveying the available literature. So you have to understand the nature of the problem. That is very important. And for if you know exactly the nature of the problem, then you will go for the surveying of the available literature. Developing ideas through discussions, that is also important for a research student. Let's suppose if we are in this particular course, we can also have discussions. Sometimes the research students are reluctant to discuss in presence of the other students, because we believe that, okay sir, I put that idea and maybe somebody else taken my idea. Okay, but remember one thing. um, the if somebody even takes your idea, it is not that easy for him or her to come out with the solution, because if you have come up with an idea, obviously you have a study about it, you have some inclination towards it, you might have interest in that topic. So nobody else can just take your topic and they start doing their work. It is not possible for any other research individual. So don't be afraid by discussing with people whom you think give you a good means explanation to you, the problem which you are thinking, or give you good advice. So you develop your idea only through discussions, not by just keeping it with your own self and just talking to your own self. Okay, I have this idea, I can do this, I can do this. No, you are alone cannot decide this, because uh, whatever the problem you are thinking about, the idea you are thinking, if you throw that idea to some people, only then that those people can let you know that whether your idea is the right one or there are some changes which are to be required. if you put in that manner, then it will work well. So it is only possible through discussions or presentations. And once you have those discussions, then you can rephrase the problem. And obviously, when you rephrase the problem, now that problem is more acceptable, rather than you stick on that. Oh no sir, I want to do this in this way, that's it. I do not want to go into discussion, sir, I will do that. No, do not fix your ideas, always be flexible, uh, make discussions, have good readings, and also see the current work, and then always ready to rephrase the research problem. Normally, whenever I deal with my students, in the first phase, I give you the journal lecture, and then I ask them to think about your own self and try to come out with various ideas. And then once they come out with the ideas, then I critically observe those ideas, and then I suggest them the various changes which I think should be there to be more appropriate. So that is also clear. The criteria of good research problem: number one, that is clear and unambiguous. There is no ambiguity. Number two, empirical. If you have a research problem, if it is empirical, it is good because it can be evaluated quantitatively and also verifiable. So you have a certain problem in your mind, but it is important to know how you verify it and how you validate it, because in our research we have to have such mechanism to verify or to validate our input. So the research problem has to be interesting, and not only interesting, if it has the novelty and originality, that counts a lot. If you come out with an idea which is an old idea and a lot of people have done research on that, that will be rejected. But if you come out with some new idea, novelty, let's suppose I just given you an idea. Let's suppose we talk about entity relationship models, we talk about spatial models, we talk about time oriented model. Let's suppose we think about including fuzziness into it, how we can come out with a fuzzy spatial model in terms of the database. So we have that conceptual model in our mind, how we can make certain changes into it to incorporate the fuzzy domain. So that is something which comes toward novelty. Okay, and related with a certain problem where that fuzziness is required. Availability of guidance, that is also important, that whether whatever the research problem you have in your mind, or you want to do that particular research, whether there is guidance available or not. Sometimes we do not have that guidance, so avoid it. So the clear cut research objectives, which number one is the symptom detection, the symptom detection, what are the symptoms we have, and then we have the analysis of the situation, then the problem definition, and last is the statement of research objectives. So what symptom से क्या मतलब है यहाँ पे? What does symptom means? Symptom से यहाँ क्या मतलब है? Defining problem results in a clear cut research objective. So we have to have a clear cut research objectives. So for that purpose, we need to know what are the symptoms. If we are doing research, for example, in a particular topic, we should know what are the symptoms, and we must detect those symptoms, then analyze or analysis of the situation, which leads to what? Which leads to problem definition. For example, you have identified that there are so many road accidents in Karachi. So that is one thing which you have detected, or you have identified, or you think about. Okay, then you want to know what are the symptoms, why it is happening. So you identified various symptoms. You might think about there is no mass communication systems here. Let's suppose there are bottlenecks. Uh, more concentration on the main roads. Let's suppose other number of vehicle, increase in number of vehicles, maybe the licensing is not good, everybody can get the license, so on and so forth. So you identify various symptoms, then you analyze the situation. Okay, how it is happening, why this is happening. You try to put all these things together, and once you do this, then you are able to make a problem. So now you have identified the problem that we have more accidents. We want to develop a ICT based or AI based solution for early detection of accidents on the road and to generate warning systems to the people um to avoid those accidents. So that is what that you come out with a problem definition. You want you make it more clear later on, and then once you identify the problem definition, then you can go and make the research objective, write the research objectives. Okay, in line with the problem statement, now you will say, okay, to obtain this, to provide this, to develop a model, let's suppose to analyze the situation, ठीक है, to compare the various models which are already there. That these are all your research objectives. Um So, according to Churchill, the research objectives are the specific components of the research problem that you will be working to answer or complete in order to answer the overall research problem. That is something which is very important, because it is a you need to answer those research questions based on those objectives which I have already discussed previously. So with this, I conclude my lecture today, and I hope you understood all the important concept regarding the problem statement or problem definition.